Hello and welcome back to our BNI San Diego podcast. I'm really excited today because, as you can see, we have a returning guest, and I'm hoping that we'll have her on more frequently. This is Coach Corinne Cavett. Welcome back, Corinne.
Thank you so much for having me, Ed. I'm so excited to be here and to talk with you today.
I'm looking forward to it, especially on this particular topic. It is
Mhm.
so what's going on right now. And our topic today is mastering inner behavior in a world of chaos.
I don't know about everyone else listening, but my life has been chaotic. Things
It, it's been
have
a
been
it's
happening left and right.
it's been a great year. It's been a great
Oh, yeah.
2024, but
hmm
there's a lot of interesting things going to happen in a lot of industries as well. It's not just, back in what was it, 2008, 2009, real estate, the car industry. Now we're seeing it's not just pocketed to those, like the big ones, but we're seeing it in all kinds of different industries right now.
Yeah, I'm finding a lot of different industries and a lot of different people in those industries are having to navigate a lot of different scenarios, right? Both professionally, but then also personally, navigating what's going on in their personal lives. And I'm a firm believer that our professional world, it serves our personal world. However, that personal world is a big driver for the way that we perform in our professional. So being able to, you know, balance the internal and master ourselves so that way in a world of chaos whatever's going on we can still get the results that we're wanting and still staying in that internal balanced responding rather than reacting state is absolutely crucial.
Yeah, staying focused on things when the storm's going on. I
Mhm.
remember, I know that there's the new version of it's called Twisters, right? The new
Oh
TV
yeah, it's
movie.
good, it's a great
But the,
one.
the original one, with Helen Hunt and I forgot his name, but Helen Hunt. I remember, and it popped into my head very vividly that towards the end of the movie, when they're actually in the midst of the tornado, and
Yep.
they go into this little shack, and there's a like a bars that are like into the ground, and
Mhm.
they tie themselves to the bars. And I don't know if you remember this, but when the tornado is over them, in as they're flailing about, straight through the eye of the storm is clear blue
Mhm.
sky.
Mhm.
And it is that always reminds me of is if we can stay focused on what we need to during the chaos, we're going to get through the storm.
Mm. I love that. And funny enough, that's a metaphor that I tell in one of my trainings.
Oh,
So
no way.
I know that scene very well. And yeah, to your point, if we can stay balanced, calm, and centered, doesn't matter what's going on around us, everything will be okay, right? That's what he consistently yells to her, like, just hold on, everything's going to be okay. If we can just stay focused, right? Stay grounded and focused, no matter what's going on outside of us, everything will be okay. And
But how do we do that?
I was going to say it requires a level of mastery, definitely requires a level of mastery. And it's something that I find as humans, I'm constantly navigating, right? Because life is life. And we get to evolve and grow. So that mastery, the first thing that comes to mind for me, that's a really, really core component of my daily routine is meditation.
Mm.
Having time to just stop, right? So often when so much is happening around us, we want to get pulled in all of those directions. And that's the last thing that we need to do. We have to stay grounded and centered, right? Holding on to that really strong pipe, right? Finding time for whatever we need. And for me, that's meditation, right? I love meditating in the morning. I'm a big proponent of ending your day before you start your day. So that way I can
Mm.
set my intention for the entire day.
Wow.
And it gives me a sense of, actually, it doesn't give me a sense, it gives me a reminder that I'm in control of my thoughts, I'm in control of my behavior, and I'm in control of my actions, right? Everything that's happening outside of us, I can respond or I can react. Now, those reactions give me more information about me, right, to help me navigate those things. However, in a world of needing to respond, finding a time to quiet my mind is absolutely crucial. Is that something, do you do that as well, Ed?
So mine is, yeah, quiet time, or what I call my devotion time in the morning.
I love that.
And I realize that And I love the word intentional that you use. If I'm not intentional about setting that time in the morning, my day, the rest of my day is going all over the place. So it's going to be, if I don't intentionally set the time, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, it won't. One of my absolute favorite metaphors from Earl Nightingale. I've listened to Earl Nightingale. My grandfather had me listening to him at 12 years old. So he's like
Right.
one of the OGs for me.
Yeah.
He tells this story of a father who was working from home and his son wanted to play with him. And he was super busy. The dad's like, I can't play right now, right? However, he can tell, the son really wants to play. So the dad has this genius idea. He sees this newspaper and he's like, I'm going to tear up the newspaper, right? There's this picture of the world on it. I'm going to tear it up and put together the picture of the world, right? The dad's like, it's going to take him forever. I'm going to have all day to make these calls. Well, 10 minutes later, this little boy has the puzzle done. And his dad's like, what? How in the world did you put that world together so quickly? And the little boy just says, well, Dad, on the back of the picture, there was a picture of a man. I just put the man together and the world was together. And it's this idea that when we're put together, right, when we're whole, aligned, intentional within ourselves, our world is going to reflect that.
Mm.
And I always remember that story. When I'm scattered, guess what? My world is scattered. When I'm grounded and in alignment, oh, it doesn't matter what's going on out here. Things just happen, right? Everything just works out.
I love that story. And I remember that story. And I love Earl Night. I mean, talk about that. That
Oh,
is the classic. That is like,
yeah.
ground zero, so to speak, for professional development. And
Mhm.
I loved how you also brought in, it's not just about your professional life, it's the combination of professional and personal because they overlap.
Yep. And a lot of people think that they can compartmentalize. And I will tell you, communication is 55% of physiology,
Oh,
right? The things that we don't know that are going on in the background
mhm.
get projected out into our sales calls, get projected out into our presentations, into our conversations. So if we are shaken in our personal life, it's like a backpack that we're carrying.
Yeah.
People think that they can't see the backpack, but guess what? We can see the backpack. You know what I mean? And so being able to stay in that level-headed place and confront whatever it is that's coming up for us in any area of life is really, really important. And it's going to funnel into our professional world.
So I love that we talked about meditation or we talked about
Mhm.
finding that thing that grounds you, that centers you. Maybe it's going outside and going for a walk in nature.
Mhm.
Maybe it's some reading time, whether you read a Bible or poems or whatever it is that just that like centering yourself. What are some things that you've done or have seen or shared with people during the storm? So that's like we've got that time in the morning to like center ourselves and prepare for the
Mhm.
day. But when we're in the midst of the storm, when life is pulling at us in every direction, things, you're in a really stressful moment or a meeting, and then, my wife calls on the phone that something happened with the kids or one of the animals, or there's
Mhm.
all kinds of struggles. How do we help? How do people, or what do you suggest for people to just kind of step back and go, okay, you know what? Let me control the things that I can control and realize the things I can't control.
Yeah, really good question. And I have two responses to it. So a big part of reacting rather than responding stems from our emotions, right? Being emotionally regulated. Now, COVID did a big number on us emotionally. So a lot of us have unprocessed emotions that are kind of running behind the scenes. So the first thing that I would say, and this is what I do in my trainings, right, is process whatever emotions have not been processed. That allows us to be really neutrally charged. Okay. So that's kind of the first component. And when you're in something like that, I always remember, and this is something that I teach in my trainings, that the quality of our life is dependent on the quality of the questions that we ask ourselves regularly. So I'll say that again. The quality of our life is dependent on the quality of the questions that we ask ourselves regularly. So in those moments when things are going crazy, a lot of times what people will ask is they will ask why, right? Why is this happening, right? Or if we're in a repeat cycle, why is this happening to me? Well, that puts us in a story mode. That puts us into the problem, which doesn't have the solution. If we want to get out of something, right, and be calm and cool, we want to find a solution. So we need to start asking ourselves different questions, right? Question could be, what can I learn from this? What do I need to get out of this? What tools do I have in my toolbox? What support do I need? What help do I need? How can I effectively get out of this? By asking ourselves the what, when, where, how questions, it puts our mind into a state of solution oriented rather than problem focused. And when we say solution oriented, it gives us that sense of control, right?
Yeah.
And then we start to get solutions and we have forward momentum. So always avoid asking yourself, why is this happening to me, or why is this happening? Because that will just keep us stuck in the problem, which will put our brain into overwhelm.
Oh my gosh, yeah. That just reminds me of a fantastic book. It's actually become one of my favorites. I probably read it 6 times over the last 2 years, and it's Ryan Holiday's um, uh, "The Obstacle Is the Way."
Mm-hmm. I
And
like that one, yeah.
it's so in one of the stories that I was talking to a friend about, have you heard of the story about the buffalo and how buffalo head into the storm instead of away from the storm?
No, I haven't. However, I love that.
So I don't know the full gist of the story, but it always reminds me that when we're in the storm, we just need to keep moving through the storm and not out of our normal like you said, reactions versus reacting versus responding, is we try to turn away from the storm and the storm just follows us
Mm-hmm.
versus heading into the storm to go through it. The storm's going to happen no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
It's how are we responding to the storm?
Exactly. And how can I love what you said, right? How can I embrace this? Like, what
Yeah.
is there for me to learn in this? Because I learned a long time ago, history tends to repeat itself unless if we get the learnings, right? So when we dive in and we embrace it, and then, okay, what is there for me to learn? How can I navigate this, right? Otherwise, that storm is going to keep, then we master the storm, right? Rather than the storm having control over us. And then going forward, when that storm rolls around again, it's like been there, done that. It's easy peasy, I can handle this.
Yeah.
I'm a champ now.
Corinne, you know who Sarah Blakely is, right?
I love Sarah Blakely.
So
Sarah
Sarah
Blakely.
Blakely, like yourself, is another high-powered,
Yep.
woman out there, right? The one of the youngest female billionaires,
Mm-hmm.
who's done some incredible things. There was I was able to attend a workshop that she did, and she talked about how as a kid at the dinner table, excuse me, her dad would ask her, "What did you fail at today?" And when she originally said it, I'm like, what the heck? And then the more she kind of explained it, it's like, oh my gosh, how incredible. You want your kids to understand that it's okay to fail, that you're going to fail. And what did you learn from it?
Yeah, I can't remember what podcast I heard that on. However, it was when I was working corporate at Merrill Lynch, and I kept dreaming of starting my own company. However, that fear of failure, right, was in the back of my head. And the moment that I heard her say that, it's like a light bulb went off. And the question was like, what if I embraced failure? And what if it was actually just feedback? And what if it was an opportunity for me? And since that conversation, and since I heard her share that, the trajectory of my life completely changed. Because if we embrace failure as just feedback, right? Oh, imagine how much, like when you guys hear that, how much pressure is just like, let go.
Yeah.
It's just feedback. That's it. That's all it is. It's like, oh, I can breathe.
And
Right?
that's the one thing that we have control over is how we respond.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh.
And yeah, and I think that's what I loved about what you were, that element of, are we responding or are we reacting?
Mhm.
And I have learned over the years, I am doing more research and reading on the element of mindset.
Mhm.
And a lot of what we're talking about goes back to that, how, what is our mindset for how we deal with challenges, how
Yeah.
we deal with the storm, how we walk through it.
Yeah. And a big part of my mission, my company name is Evolution Room. And a big part of my mission is let's embrace evolution. And guess what? A part of evolution is falling down and learning, right? And what if we remove the judgment of that falling down? What
Ooh.
if it was just more information for us, right? What if instead we got curious about what that reaction was, right? Okay, I reacted to so and so, which I've done in the past. What is that telling me about myself? Okay, it's just information. That's all it is. And those reactions are little blips of opportunity for us to grow. You know, the moment somebody has a reaction, sometimes they just beat themselves up, they judge themselves, they get angry, right? And guess what that does? It just magnifies that story and that reaction. What if instead we just got curious of, okay, what about this is about me? What am I to learn here about myself? Okay. And just took it from a space of curiosity rather than judgment. Oh my gosh, growth would be so much easier for us to embrace and never linear, right? It's not linear, right? However, so much easier for us to embrace and let go of the pressure of needing to be perfect or
Oh,
to look a certain way. Oh,
and I love that word curiosity, right? Because it just opens up like all kinds of possibility.
oh, so many possibility. Even in, this could be personally in a personal relationship, let's say with your partnership or in your company with an employee. Imagine if there were conflict and
Mm.
rather than going head to head, you both got curious about one another and about what this was about and also where the opportunity for one another to grow is. Imagine that conversation, right?
This is what an incredible conversation today because you're using some of my favorite words: intentional, curiosity, opportunity. I mean, all these things are are us making the choice, making the decision on how we're going to handle something.
Exactly. And that storm that you mentioned, what if that storm, whatever it is that you're experiencing, what if that storm is there for you to get to your next level,
Ooh.
right? We dream of, I want to be this like top level CEO, or I want to be the best parent, or I want whatever that image is that we have. Well, what if that challenge that you're experiencing right now is that opportunity to embrace it and evolve from it so that way you can step into that next version of yourself? That's the way that I like to look at challenges, or that's the way that I like to look at a breakdown, right? When it feels like everything is just going crazy. Well, guess what? In order to evolve to a next level, we have to break down what was. If I want to build a new house, I got to break down some walls.
Yeah.
And that's all that it is.
Well, and it also reminded me as you're talking, it reminded me of, as I have four daughters, right? And I can't I can't teach things unless I've gone through something or failed at something.
Mhm.
That they're, what's that saying that um I can be empathetic to someone, but I can't really feel for them unless I've gone through that
Mm,
tragedy, the storm, whatever it is. And when you're talking to someone who is where you have been, it's so much more powerful. It's so much more impactful for someone when you've actually experienced it, whether it's someone going through cancer.
mhm.
And for someone to talk to someone that's going through cancer that's never been through cancer, it's one thing, right? Because I've never experienced it. But
Right.
if somebody has gone through cancer and they're sharing with another person who's, it's just so much more powerful because they understand that you've been there.
Yeah. They get it.
And
And
as a coach, I would imagine that's in, you
oh,
you you almost want to go out and fail at things so that you can learn from them because then you can go out and teach them.
yep, yep. I talk all the time about, especially as coaches, right? We can only coach to the level of our evolution.
Yes.
So I take it as my responsibility as a coach and as a trainer to consistently evolve and put myself into environments where I am uncomfortable. And that is
Mm.
not fun. However, it expands that comfort zone. And we get to fail, we get to evolve, we get to grow. So we can turn around and coach others through it. Directly to your point. So I'm consistently doing everything I can to push that status quo and push my status quo and challenge that. right? So that way I can turn around and say, hey, I've been here, I've done that, I get it. And while people have their own journey, you can see what it takes for someone to get through that and really link arms with them and say, hey, you got this.
Well, and one of the things I've realized, Dr. Meisner, who's the founder of BNI, Business Network International, many years ago shared with me, Ed, people are always watching. They watch how you do everything. If you're leading a company, if you're in a particular position, people are always watching how you react or respond to things.
Mhm.
And and as a leader, if you're a leader of your company, if it's you and an employee, if it's you're a solopreneur but you have a family and children, they're always watching. And how we go about responding and learning how to respond to things,
Mhm.
it sets things in motion that we're not even aware of.
Yeah, I love the I want to point out the distinction that you just made. It's the how. It isn't always the what, right? It's that how that is the difference that makes the difference, right? Because what we can do is let's say we had the conversation, right? Oh, well, I embraced being uncomfortable and I had the conversation that I didn't want to have, which is great. However, how did you have that conversation, right? Did you come there with a clear head? Were you flexible? Were you curious? That how component is what people are watching,
Mm.
just like what you said, because that gives them, well, really, it influences them. Like I tell people all the time, we are influencing one another all of the time. The Heart Math Institute did a study, and I want to say it's 8 feet. Our energy radiates 8 feet outside of ourselves. So
Whoa.
before you even walk in the door, people get a sense of you unconsciously. It's a really, really interesting study that they did, and they did it with yogurt. So in my training, we always talk about what about the yogurt, really, really fascinating study. But what is that energy that you're putting out, right? When before you even walk in a room, what are you influencing? How are you influencing people? So I wanted to make that distinction of what you said, that how component is really, really important. How are you showing up? Not
It,
necessarily just what are you saying, right? In BNI, I
yeah,
did the commercial,
yeah,
right? I did it. I showed up. I was
yeah.
here. But how were you there? Which leads to that intentionality. How were you showing up?
Well, and that how can be a very positive, energetic, and it
Mhm.
can also be a very negative, detracting, you know.
Oh yeah, I think we all know those people where we're kind of like, I'm gonna step 8 feet back. You know what I
No,
mean?
and that's a really good point. And we want to make sure that if as salespeople, as business owners, as parents, as partners, whatever it is, that we're projecting
Yeah.
the right feeling, the right vibe, that 8 feet. What kind of energy do you want? And these are those, like, again, going back to that word intentional, these are
Mhm.
those things that we need to intentionally prepare for, because let's face it, we know it's not if the storm comes, it's when the storm comes.
Yep.
We know
Yeah.
it's going to happen. It's
Yep.
going to come.
Yep.
Are we prepared for it?
Yeah. And this is why focusing on our personal and professional development is so important. What is that influence that you want to bring out? Do you want it to be an influence of, there's a lot going on in the world. There's also a lot of negativity in the world. Do you want to be adding to that? Or do you want to be a part of the few that
Mm.
are working on shifting that, changing that, right? What influence do you want to give? And it's going to start with ourselves, right? We are the common denominator with that. So doing our own personal growth, our own personal development, is going to have a huge ripple effect on whether you're a CEO in a company, right, or you're a solopreneur. It doesn't matter. It's going to ripple out. And I'm a firm believer that we attract what we put out. So it's just going to come back to you tenfold. That's almost the basis of giver's gain,
Yeah,
right?
very much so.
BNI, we talk about giver's gain. Maybe this is a giver's gain in the component of energy, right? There isn't maybe a direct ROI on that. However, what are you putting out? Because it's gonna come back. It's gonna attract clients, right?
Mhm.
What type of clients are you attracting? What type of people are you hiring? A big part of that is a reflection of ourselves. So the more that we grow and evolve, the more our world will.
Oh, and as we walk through life, are you attracting people where they're following you? If you desire to be a leader in your community or your business or your industry, I love I love to read. I'm always trying to pour in because I'm one of those, I want to fail forward all the time. John Maxwell, I'll never forget it. He talked about he goes, if you think you're a leader and you turn around and nobody's following you, you're just going for a walk, right?
That's a great point.
And what we just talked about is the reason leaders have people following them is that energy that just attracts people to them because of how they respond, because of their outlook on life, because of all those things. People want to follow those people.
Yeah. And something that just showed up for me as you were saying that is it might take courage because you're probably going to be different than a lot of other people out there, right? It can be easy to fall into the complacency that so many people fall into, right? This is the way that it is. It is what it is, right? Well, it's going to take courage for you to be different, to think different, to operate different. However, that energy, I will tell you, attracts a lot of really good stuff.
That's awesome. And Corinne, I know that we're almost out of time, so we're gonna close it up here in a minute. But oh my gosh, we could talk about this for a lot more. And I'm looking forward to having you back with us in the near future.
Likewise, likewise.
But as we prepare to close, if we were to leave some last words with individuals who are probably in the midst of the storm right now, that are kind of going through it, what are some words of wisdom you can leave with our listeners for today?
Something that we touched on earlier is if you are facing a challenge right now, what would happen if you looked at it as an opportunity for your growth? And what would the next version of you do to navigate through that? Outside of that, I'm a coach that has a coach. I'm a huge proponent of having someone in your corner to be able to help you navigate because as humans, things get really noisy. But I would say always remember that if you have the vision, right, just like you said, the focus in that storm, just hold on tight to that vision and just keep navigating towards it. The storm will settle.
Wow, Corinne, thank you so much. I appreciate your words of wisdom. It's always a pleasure to see you and get to interact with you. I look forward to our next podcast, which I hope is again very soon. And again, thank you for being on with us today.
Thanks so much, Ed.
And for our listeners, we look forward to seeing you back with us next week with another wonderful, engaging conversation. And you never know who's going to show up. So we'll see you next week.
This episode of the BNI San Diego podcast has been brought to you by Cruise Productions, a San Diego-based video production company and proud BNI member. You can find us at the intersection where business and creativity meet, or online at cruiseproductionsinc.com.